order the regular meeting for Monday, July 27, 2020 of the Page County Board. At this time, we'll do a roll call.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter. Yes. Mrs. Sullivan Smoot. Yes. Mr. Gretling.
Yes,
All present.
thank you. At this time, we'd like to observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We now have certification of matters discussed in closed session.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter. Yes. Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smoot. Yes. Mr. Gretling.
Yes,
Motion passed.
thank you. Under action items, we have approval of claims for payment. Ms. Seacrest.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board and board docs. You all were provided with the claim certification where the total operating fund of $149,242.41, food service fund of $37,134.19 for total expenditures of $186,366.60. You were also provided with a list of claims and a check register. If you all have any questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Is there a motion to approve the claims for payment?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we move to approve claims payment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter. Yes. Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smoot.
Yes.
Mr. Gretling.
Yes,
Motion passed.
thank you. We also have Ms. Seacrest purchase orders of 5,000 or more.
Yes, board members, you were provided with a list of purchase orders for approval over 5,000. We have 3 there, and if you have any questions, I will do my best to answer those as well. Or defer to someone else who may be here.
Do we have a motion to approve purchase orders over $5,000?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve purchase orders over $5,000.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions?
Yes, on the Apex Learning, that's just for courses that sort of like the dual enrollment type thing, that will be used in the high school.
Just in the high school, those are for courses that with the new 6-period schedule that we, can't get the regular classroom teachers. So we're still trying to afford students that opportunity. So they'll be taking those courses in an online format. We just need the additional seats.
Other questions?
Dr. Painter. Yes. Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smoot.
Yes.
Mr. Gretling.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Mr. Moran, Workman's Compensation Panel of Physicians.
Good evening, board members. Every year we come before you with a panel of physicians for our worker compensation claims. We're seeking approval for these folks again this year. Can you answer any questions you may have? These are the same folks that did it last year.
Do we have a motion to approve the workman's compensation panel of position?
I make a motion that we approve the workers' comp panel of positions.
A second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Dr. Payne? Yes. Mrs. Sullivan Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you, board.
Mr. Jeffries, bid rolling. Sounds like a sporting event.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I've handed you out a slightly updated information from the last board meeting. We did hear back from Coca-Cola Bottling Company Consolidated. They are showing an increase of somewhere between 25 and 50 cents per case, which is a 1.6 to 3.8% increase per item. We are still awaiting information from Thornton River Orchard and Market for peaches, nectarines, and apples. And Daryl Holder with Survivor Farm, who provides us with blackberries, raspberries, tomatoes, and sweet potatoes, did not have any changing in price from last year. I would recommend that all of those bids be rolled, including the Thornton River Orchard and Market, unless they were to raise the price more than 5%.
We have a motion to approve the information on bid rolling.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the bid rolling as described.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
If Coca-Cola Bottling Company, if we approved it, what does that, what does that entail? I mean, what do we sell at the schools from Coca-Cola
So
Bottling?
at the high school level, we sell some Dasani flavored waters, and they're all Smart Snack approved drinks. So the high school level, we have some vitamin water zeros, some Powerade zeros, flavored waters, those kind of things. And then they also provide us with 12-ounce, 100% fruit juices, which can be sold at our middle schools and high schools. With this year being unknown, I'm not sure that, and I've expressed to them, I'm unsure of what our sales may look like this year based off of the unknown of our meal service. But that is what, and it is solely what is sold through the cafeterias. This is separate from any vending machines that you may see in the schools. Those are separate contracts that are not part of my department.
Okay. So who does, can any, I mean,
Do you mean vending machines at the schools?
yeah,
Typically, the school, each individual school will have some kind of relationship with them.
the school set it up and then the profit goes to them.
Right, but those vending machines aren't to be turned on during the school day. They're turned on after the school hours.
Right. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Lansbury?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Dr. Painter? Yes. Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes,
Motion passed.
thank you. We also have, Ms. Jeffrey's meal prices.
Yes, again, ladies and gentlemen of the board, this is very similar to what you saw last board meeting. We did last week receive the amount of federal reimbursement for our lunches, which then set our adult prices. So since last board meeting, you will now see that I'm proposing an adult breakfast price be set at $2.30. We do have to have that set at least $2.26, and that the adult lunch price be set at $3.85. And again, the minimum price is that we have to sell at is $3.84.50. So we're meeting those minimums. And then, again, our elementary school prices, if approved, if our application is approved for CEP, those meals at the elementary level for students enrolled would be free based off of your approval at the last meeting.
We have a motion to approve the meal prices as presented.
Make a motion that we approve the meal prices as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and seconds. Is there any discussion?
I have one question. When will you know about the free country elementary?
So the application is due July 31st. Since the state highly encouraged us to apply, I don't think that there will be an issue, but it does take a few weeks. They will tell us obviously before our start date. I'm hopeful that it'll be within 2 to 3 weeks of the submission. And I will keep you updated as we find that information.
Other questions? Vote.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Dr. Painter? Yes. Mr. Goodler?
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Motion
And the next one from Ms. Jeffries is approval of policy EFA.
And ladies and gentlemen of the board, there were no changes made to this from when I last presented it. Most of it has to do with small corrections of food service to nutritional services. Some of the main changes were that we are required to state that we will never make a child throw away or discard a meal after it's been served. And then we did have to clarify that adults may not charge any amount to their account.
Do we have a motion to approve policy EFA as presented?
Make a motion.
We have a motion
Second.
and seconds. Any questions, comments?
Dr. Painter? Yes. Mr. Goodler?
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes,
Motion passed.
Thank you.
thank you. Mr. Moran, small purchasing policy. Mr. Bell, small purchasing policy.
Good evening, board members. Before you tonight, also again in regards to policy DJ, the small purchasing policy. I went over that with you last time in terms of the revisions that we were requesting. I don't have anything further to present to you tonight.
Do we have a motion to approve the small purchasing policy as presented?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the policy for small purchasing.
Is there a second? We have a second. Questions, comments?
Briefly summarize it for everyone.
Sure. The what we're requesting is that the bid process would be for estimated costs of $30,000 and over. Currently, it's at the $10,000 level, and we're also requesting to change the lower tier for board approval from $5,000 to $10,000. So the board would still approve purchase orders from $10,000 to $30,000, and the bid process would be for $30,000 and above.
Other questions?
Mr. Goodler?
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Dr. Painter? Yes. Mrs. Sullivan Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes,
Motion passed.
Thank you.
thank you. And now the Page County Public Schools Instructional Plan, Dr. Gonzalez.
Good evening, board. Tonight, we bring to you the instructional plans for your approval as presented 2 weeks ago.
Do we have a motion in regards to the Page County Public Schools Instructional Plan as presented to us at our previous meeting? in order for us to discuss the instructional plan, we have to have a motion on the floor. We have a motion to approve the instructional plan as presented. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. The plan is now on the floor and open for discussion, questions, whatever the board may want to generate in that order.
I have a big question about the 4x4 block. People, Fanny asked me, I come from a division that's going to it, and other divisions are going to the 4x4, and we're running away from it. So I would like an explanation why, since it would allow us to have more classes for students to take.
Right. I'll let Mr. Benson address that. We have addressed that on our frequently asked questions now. We understand that it is different for folks, but it will allow them to still get the content they need, but I'll let him explain it further. If you'll use the mic, Mr. Benson, please.
You're right, we did shy away from the 4x4 block because we have been told to anticipate a spike in cases for this fall. And so if we needed to shut down the school division for a extended period of time, we wanted to be in a situation where students would have time to recoup and not have the pressure of those classes ending that semester. So in order to provide the appropriate social distancing and just based upon our physical space, we moved back to a 6-period day schedule.
Additionally, what I don't know if our community is aware of or not, but with our 4x4, students earn well in excess of the credits they need for graduation. So moving to a 6-period day will not shorten them at all. It just eliminates some of the extras that they were taking each year. So they have plenty of opportunities to earn the credits they need to for graduation and still participate in AP and dual enrollment classes. It really helps, like Mr. Benson was saying, when you have to make the adjustments on the fly, like we're going to have to do, we felt like that going back to a 6-period day would allow our teachers to adjust the pacing if they had all year to work in that window, as opposed to, oh my gosh, we're closed for 2 months in the fall, but we got to be done by January. If you have until June, you can adjust more readily. So that was really thinking about the instructional needs is why we made that decision for this year. And just to clarify, if things improve and a miracle happens and things get a little bit more normal like we would like, it would still say the 6-period all year. So we're committed to this all year.
1 year.
This year, the school
1
year
year.
2021.
1 year.
Right.
And then there's always the possibility and probability perhaps that it will go back to 4x4 block.
Right.
And things will return to what we would like to refer to as normal.
Correct.
So total instructional time will be more for each class on the 6-period day schedule than it would be on the 4x4 because we'll be going year long. So we said, it would be easier to plan for more than less and try to have to recoup. We know we have some skill building and recouping that we have to do because we ended the school year earlier this past year.
Stay on that subject, Mr. Benson, I sent an email about the music departments. If you could elaborate just a little bit more on that from what I read earlier. Do we think we're going to have chorus or we're going to have band or what things might be available?
So we're going to try and do both. The problem you have is when you go to a 6-period day schedule and we're basically mandating the 4 course in one of those electives, that only leaves really one space in a student schedule for another elective or a student choice. So what happens is it's hard to try to put all the people that want to take course, for instance, to have the same period in the same schedule on the, we've talked about going A/B, having 2 different groups and putting all that together. When we talked about forming student groups, we talked about going by last name or household and those sort of things. So what we've talked about doing is still having our individual music classes as we've had, but having the rehearsals or the practices be more of an after-school club so that the group of music students could get together, whether that means we designate some days after school for band and some days after school for choir, then the group of students could come together. We would still practice the same social distancing and sanitation mitigation strategies that we've talked about, just like would be doing with athletics. Because if you only have a few for a choir, it's not really much, or a band's the same thing. You want to be able to bring students together, and after school is the common place for that to happen.
Yeah, I like that idea. And I know they've done that in the past as well. Or is there going to be an activity bus that's going to help students in need?
So right now, we're asking for students to provide their transportation for them. Just like we would be if you were participating in athletics. We don't have an activity bus for athletics. We wouldn't necessarily have an activity bus for the after-school music or other clubs that would be going on.
Okay.
If we get to the place where, after those those groups have put together a piece or, a place where, where we are with cases and we can have some sort of performance where we would showcase the choir and or band, then we feel like we still want to be prepared to be able to do that.
Other questions?
Yes, on the last time that we met, we had talked about A group would go Monday, Thursday, B group would go Tuesday, Friday. And there have been some people who have reached out to me asking, why not go A group Monday, Tuesday, B group Thursday, Friday? And
The reason behind that, because we considered, I know there's some who are asking why not an AA, then a Wednesday off, then a BB day. When we make these decisions, we first and foremost have to think about our students and what's best instructionally. Instructionally, it's best to have only 2 or 3 days in between each session so they can chunk and chew the material. Chunk meaning that they get that help and that feedback or that face-to-face experience and then go over a few days to work and manipulate the material and then come back again. We felt like the 5 days that would exist between that AA, Wednesday, BB schedule was just too long. That's a whole week off before they come back again. And so really, it was strictly from an instructional perspective. We understand people's concerns when we say we're deep cleaning on Wednesday. Why aren't you doing it between the 2 groups? We need our community to understand we're deep cleaning every day. Like we're doing all the protocols and recommendations and then some. It just affords us more opportunities on Wednesday. So I don't want people to think that, wow, we're not doing anything on a Monday or before the Tuesday group comes, we are. It truly is driven instructionally. And on another note, we provide a lot of meals to our students. And we will be looking at sending some meals home with our students when they come face to face. And from Ms. Jeffrey's perspective, it's a lot easier to send home 2 or 3 days worth of food versus 5 home with a child on the bus trying to get it home to help them. So again, and first and foremost, it was instructionally, what's best instruction for kids. And second was the food. We didn't want to burden our children with the food trying to take that home. I will say in my conversations with other superintendents, I've only seen a couple of school divisions. I'm not saying I've checked with all 132, just a couple that are doing the AA, BB day, and just about everyone else that I talk to is doing the model we're doing. It is to your pleasure what you'd like us to do. We will adapt to whichever one you want us to do, but we made the proposal based on instruction.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, may I share something that our team talked about this morning?
something that they talked about this morning.
That we talked about this morning.
That we did. We discussed this morning.
Oh, okay, I went in on
There
that.
you are.
Okay, thank you. I am kind of losing it.
So, looking at some of our,
If beforehand, Mr. Googler has a comment.
Oh, she was just wanting to relay some information.
Oh, I got it. Okay, yeah.
So one thing that we looked at, we were looking at the data from the survey we sent out to the staff, just asking about, first of all, to our families and staff, of which we had 680. Ms. Green-Wallace, could you pull that up, please? When we surveyed the staff and families as of about 20 this morning, we had 681 responses. Many were parents, some were employees who were also parents. When they look at what model that they're looking at having their children join, it's predominantly the blended learning model, but I wanted to take you down to the next question, Ms. Green-Wallace, if you could scroll down. We did put out there about temperature checks, because we were hearing feedback about temperature checks. Ms. Green Wallace, could you hit the plus sign there to make that a little bit larger on the screen, please? And as you can see, we're not quite even at 50% for people who wanted us to do temperature checks at all levels. We have heard back from some of our staff via some of our faculty meetings, and the questions they were asking their administrators, that they were more concerned about checking their students' temperatures, and we were saying we needed to do it division-wide. You can't randomly just be checking your students' temperatures as they walk into your classroom. So we brainstormed this morning on what we could do, but again, keep in mind, 21% who answered the survey said that they like it the way we have it. So how it is in the plan that we proposed 2 weeks ago was temperature checks for the elementary, health screenings for secondary. So then this morning we met thinking, how can we do both across the division? I did reach out to other superintendents to kind of pick their brains. What are y'all doing? Y'all doing how you manage it and things like that. And so we decided as a team that if the board is your pleasure, we could find a way to do temperature checks and screenings across the division. So if that would help our staff feel safer. We're looking at having them come in and have their temperatures read with a no-touch thermometer at the schools. We're proposing that the screenings be done by the families, and that they, we have a little mock-up of it. Mr. Google can pass it around. Just a little mock-up. Because not everyone has technology capabilities, we would send home this worksheet here, which says these are the symptoms, and it's saying to help keep all students and staff healthy and safe, please check your child for these symptoms each day before sending them to school. If your child is experiencing any of these symptoms, then please do not send them to school. And as you'll see there's a little list. And what we would do is this now, where they would sign the child's name and the parent would sign off, that's like their ticket to come to school. Because we were thinking about, and some of our community members suggested to have a Google Docs. Yes, we can do all that, but then what about those who don't have access to Google Docs? What about who's going to check it? Now Johnny has come in the building, he's gone to a classroom, and 2 hours later we discovered the screening wasn't done for him. So we felt like the easiest way is do an old-fashioned paper pencil and have a child come in every day with the parent asserting that they've checked for these symptoms. We then will do the temperature check on all children and keep that confidential. And then, of course, as symptoms arise, if they do throughout the day, we'll attend to it like we have outlined in our plan. We'll look at the nurse will assess, the nurse will isolate if needed, the nurse will call the family. But we felt like this would not tie us down. We were afraid of backlogging our doors with everyone trying to come in and answer questions and who was going to do it. We didn't want to burden our teachers with it. So we felt like if you want, we could adjust our plan to reflect daily screenings and temperature checks for the whole division, but doing it a little bit more old-fashioned with the screening piece of it. And like I said, use it as a ticket. You come in with a sign that's asserting that the parent is certifying that their child was free of these symptoms when they dropped them off to school.
Yes, sir. So building on that, I have no problem with the screening form per se. It's one tool, right?
Right.
It's not a panacea. It's not foolproof. So I really like the temperature screens, the temperature checks.
Right.
For all students.
Yes.
At the door. Also, the staff will actually lay eyes on a kid when they come to the door, not
Yes.
just take the remote temperature, but they'll look at the kid.
Yes.
You know, and have a sense of whether that kid may be sick or
Right.
not. So I think that's the gold standard.
Right.
For you guys.
Right.
Is that actual check and then looking at those kids as they come through the door.
And that's exactly, that you're right, exactly right, Mr. Gubler. The ticket allows them in the door for us to look at them and take a temperature.
So I'm in favor of both.
Making that adjustment,
Yeah.
that's what we would need to know if you all wanted us to make adjustments to the plan to reflect that.
I like the adjustment, but I'm also a realist that you know how many are gonna show up without this, and then are you gonna have a big long line of then asking them all these?
Well, this is the thing, we talked about that because we realized that that happens with anything that you try to get a paper signed back. We feel like it'll be maybe a couple of weeks of chaos, and after that, when the parents are getting called because we're not letting Johnny into school, they'll remember. It's gonna take a few weeks though to train our public up, but we feel like we have to enforce it. You don't get to come in unless you have a ticket, so it will be chaos the first week for sure.
So what happens to the kid if he doesn't have the ticket?
Well, we'll put it somewhere until we can get hold of the parent. Like someone's gonna have to do the screening. And we're trying to train our parent up. We don't want to burden our teachers with having to ask these questions, and if we keep doing it, then we need our parents to be our partners.
Yeah.
So we'll be holding the child, and then they'll have to come answer the screening questions. We'll ask them verbally over the phone, or we'll have to sign, they'll have to come get the child. We're not quite sure, because we were coming up with this morning to help you for tonight's meeting. But we want to really push back and make sure that our parents partner with us and don't leave it on
I
us.
think that's gonna be a struggle at times.
It is, and I think it'll be a struggle the whole first 2 weeks or so. I do, I realize that. With any new initiative, you'll get that pushback.
And I think you may get some parents who just check boxes after a while.
And that's true too, just like we were wondering if maybe even like our, some older students, you're just gonna say what you wanna say because you wanna get to school, and that's just humanity. And we will work around that as we do with anything. It's just like when kids come to school with the flu, or you gotta hope that the parents will make the right decision and keep their children home. Unfortunately, sometimes they still come to school. So we will address this just like we have with other illnesses. Parents will be getting a call and they'll need to come pick their child up within the hour.
But you also will be doing orientations.
Yes, we're gonna train families, we're gonna get it right. So we're training them on hand washing, on the symptoms, on what to look for. Everyone will get the training and what the expectations are. But I agree with all of you. It will be some time of training for quite a few weeks.
So I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, if parents have to come on board with this, they have a responsibility to be serious and help with this, because the schools can't do it all.
That's right. We have to be partners.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So where's the temperature check going to happen? Is it going to happen at the school, or is it going to be on the bus?
No, it's gonna be at the school. We felt like the bus was, because if the child shows a temperature at a bus stop, we can't leave them at the bus stop if they're there by themselves unattended. Because we did think about that first.
Wow.
That we're gonna designate which doors, not all doors will be open. They'll have to come through certain doors that'll be staffed. And, they'll have to come through that. But again, people have to remember, it's not our whole student population. You only have about half want to do blended learning, and then that group is cut into half that's coming on any given day. While it takes some time, yes. Is it manageable? Yes. Is it an adjustment? Yes.
But I think what this painter is getting at is that bus ride can become a situation where kids.
It is, and that's something we talked about too, but we just don't know how we can do, like with a 6-year-old, if you show a temperature and they're at the bus stop by themselves, we can't just leave them there either. And then you're backing up traffic while you're trying to take temperatures. That's the whole reason why we didn't choose the bus stop. Again, we're hoping parents will not even be sending Johnny to school with a temperature. That's just a second layer for us to double check ourselves.
Now, on the isolation rooms, is there a certain air quality thing that's going to be, is there some kind of format or process that you're going to keep that infection, how's it going to be held down? Yes, when someone gets a fever, they go to isolation.
We purchased, some new HEPA filters, for that room. They're trying to control the air quality in that area. And those folks that are put in that isolation area will be essentially quarantined away from them.
Is it going to be a certain room with like fixed walls,
It is.
like drapes?
Every school will have an identified room for that.
And we're ensuring the ventilation in the whole school building too, because that's part of our health plan. We've addressed that in that plan.
I'd like to ask a question about instruction.
Mm-hmm.
And it says in the plan that remote learning provides an opportunity for students and teachers to remain connected and engaged with the content while working from their homes. Can you explain to me how that works?
Well, it's going to be a little tricky because of some of our technology issues that we're up against that we won't have really into play until closer to December. So what that's going to happen with Schoology being the new learning platform, they will be able to stay connected via phones, phone apps, but there will be a few children that don't even have that they'll have to make phone calls. So the teachers will be reaching out to the children, much like we did in the spring, reaching out to our children as we were checking on them. So while they're engaging in the lesson, now as more people get digital and get internet connection, it'll be more interactive. But right now, it'll be when we're sending the work home, they interact with it at home with teacher support. So,
What is the teacher's support?
the teacher support would be like, let's say you're Johnny and you don't have internet access and you're 3rd grade and I'm sending assignments in with you. then maybe on that Wednesday, I'd be calling to check on you. Johnny, are you getting it? You understand it? I saw yesterday in class, you weren't quite getting it all. I had.
But I'm remote, I'm not coming to class.
Okay, so you're not coming at all. I would still reach out to you, and because we're still looking to see how many kids are choosing remote. So if we have enough kids choosing full remote, we'll be able to pair them up with a teacher who's going to be full remote. So she'll be doing that every day, like checking in with them a couple times for the week, because that'll be her whole class. But for some teachers, for whom they teach a particular content area that, let's say like chemistry, sorry to all the chemistry teachers out there, but we only have like the 2 chemistry teachers, right? So we wouldn't have enough to have a 3rd teacher to be the remote teacher. So that teacher would have to help with her kids who show up, as well as her kids who are at home. So she would have to reach out on her planning period or different times and connect with the child on the days that they're not together.
So in some school divisions, the way it's set up is the students who are remote have access to the classes that the teachers are teaching. Like I believe in Fairfax, they tried and it didn't work real well, but they're going to try again, where students, especially high school students, are on a schedule. They have X amount of classes. This class is from here to here. They go on virtually. Teachers there, the other students that are in the class are there. It's like a big, whatever Zoom looking thing, and there's the class.
Yes, and
that's not what you're talking about.
No, because we do not have that capability yet. Not all our children have devices, nor does everyone have access to internet, nor do we have enough hotspots throughout the county. That would be the perfect world where at 10 o'clock, all of Ms. Gonzalez's kids would get online and we'd all see each other at the same time. It will not be synchronous at that time. It'll be asynchronous where they just go on at different times, but they're not all going to be together at one time until we improve our technology, which is what we're working towards. As you all know, we place the orders for the devices. We have the plans in place working with the county to get more Wi-Fi out in the community. And when school starts, we're going to teach our kids how to download the material so they can work with it. But again, it won't be all at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. Everyone's getting together with Ms. Gonzalez. That's just not how it's going to work right now for us.
So if I'm a remote learner, it's on my schedule.
Yes. And I had a parent ask that question. So on the frequently asked questions, we said that you could do it at the hours that suited your family. They would just need to make sure they complete the assignments each week.
And then it's the teacher's responsibility to reach out to that student, make sure that they're engaged.
Right, that they're doing okay.
And grade their work.
Yes, give them feedback.
But as far as attendance, there's no such thing.
Yes, the attendance for full remote children will be based on their interactivity with the material. So we'll be able to check. So let's say we have to do packet drop-offs and pickups. We would check to see that they're completing the work. That, according to BDOE, that will count for as attendance because they're interacting with us. So we have a lot of leeway this year what counts for attendance. As long as the children are interacting weekly, we're able to count them, whether they're at the building or they're at home.
And your best estimate is that it's going to take at least until November.
Yes, is that the last we heard, Mr. Samples, on devices?
To get in devices and other things in place for students with remote learning.
Right.
So we're waiting on devices. Is that going to be the piece that we're pretty much waiting on?
Like he's looking at you for the answer.
Devices and the ability for internet at home.
Yeah, we're waiting for those pieces as well. And just so the community knows, we planned ahead, but we're in line with the whole nation fighting for the same equipment. I don't want people to think we waited at the last minute. That's not the case at all.
And today we approved Schoology or whatever.
Schoology. Schoology.
However you say it.
Mm-hmm.
We approved that.
Mm-hmm.
That's our operating system.
Learning management system.
And our teachers have the equipment necessary to work with that piece of software.
Not quite yet, because last board meeting, we did not approve the devices we were going to buy for them, so we're having.
Nor did we approve it at this board meeting.
Exactly. So, Mr. Samples reached back out and we had the discussion about the devices, of which he still thinks was a good device, because I had that meeting with him right after that meeting. The price of the quote that we were given has expired, so now it's higher, the quote we're getting from the company, which makes it more expensive. So we'll be putting out a survey this week because we're kind of with our hands tied now with the limited money we have to work with that price increase. is, we're gonna be checking with our teachers to see who have access to a device of their own, unfortunately, and then who do we need to get a device for, because we do need to make sure everyone has access to something to use Schoology. Because you don't want to use it off your phone. Off your phone is good for checking in, but not for producing the work that the teachers need. They need a device. So that's our next piece of the logistical puzzle.
But don't most teachers have laptops?
No, they don't. That was the whole reason why we were buying them for this last week.
What percent have laptops?
Well, but they all have, that's old desktops.
We're working on a survey for teachers specifically to see how many have a device at home that they currently can use
But if
without
you're
us having to
asking,
provide one.
right, but if you're asking Ms. Googler what they have from Page County Public Schools, they don't. They do not have a device
Other
issued to them.
other than desktops.
Old desktops, that is their old ones from the school, from the student laboratories. They don't have anything new or up to date. That's what we were trying to get them. And so-
Schoology run off of the internet,
It can, but again, we're assuming everyone has a computer, but
but they do in their classroom.
yes, but a lot of them will be doing some stuff at home too. So we want to make sure, that's why we wanted to make sure they had something portable, because we're asking them to plan in 2 locations, at home and at work. So we felt like it was our job to provide them with the tools. So we're going to do a survey now, because the few that have laptops, what they're doing is they've taken the student computers off a cart and they're using those, but we need those now for the students. So it's a piece we're still working on.
I guess I'd like to hear options. I'd like to hear some less expensive options than what was presented.
Well, Mr. Samples can speak to that. When I spoke to him last week after we all had our discussion here a couple of weeks ago, it's about the quality of their thing. So Mr. Samples, would you speak to that as to why we selected the Dell Latitudes?
We wanted to give them something that they would be able to have the option to put software on. That was the thought at the time. Again, like she said, that a quote has expired, so the price has gone up significantly from what was presented last time. This is a web-based platform, so Jim, this was something that can be accessed from a computer in a teacher's room that's currently there. But the devices we were looking at was so that we had something to provide them to go home with in case they did not have something, or didn't have something really good to use at home.
Can teachers use a Chromebook to run Schoology on?
Yes, because it is a web-based platform, they could use a Chromebook to access it.
I guess that would be my question, then why not Chromebooks?
Because it's so basic. It doesn't, we wanted to give them flexibility to load software and use more robust versions of different programs, not just a web-based version of everything. It was their primary tool. That's what we were trying to, because our teachers haven't had that before. That's what we were aiming for. And this was such a killer price. The product that we had selected, he had worked out such a good deal. It was originally around $1,000, and we got them to come down to $500 on a really good device that was going to last a long time and do everything for the teachers. But again, that price quote expired.
With the Chromebooks. So I was trying, when I found out that they were delayed, we voted on this on May the 11th. And I guess the order went out after that, and that's when you hit the wrong ball that it was.
The student Chromebooks?
Yes.
Yes, well, they've been, and it's 2 orders you all did, and so, but they're both on back order. Yeah,
So about 425.
There's one for 425 and then another for 300. The 425 is estimated between the 2nd and 3rd week of November right now, and the 300 is mid-December.
Now with the Chromebooks, if it's, I don't know what the percentage is, and I'm sure you don't have it all yet either, of kids coming to school. They're not going to need the Chromebooks, is that correct?
Well, they can still use them in the classroom.
Okay.
and they'll need them for the remote days that they're not there. Remember, they're only there 2 days, so they need it for the other 3. And according to our data so far, we have, what was it, about 50% that we're going to do the blended learning. And we have a portion that's undecided as well. But even our full remote kids would need devices because they're our students. We need to provide them as well. May I also reference for the record, for those who are listening, that we did provide the Page County Educational Association data. Were there any questions off of that? Not that I can really answer it. I just have the data that Lee Meadows said. I just want her and her association to know that the data was shared and you've all reviewed it. Just for the record, so that they know that you've all seen it.
Yeah, so that was interesting. And that was just shown to us, is that public record?
We're attaching it to board docs, yes, and we're showing it right here, right now as well.
All right, good, that's important.
Yes.
So it was interesting when I read the one description of the sense of folks' comfort levels with face coverings. And if you're just looking at teachers, now I get that only 237 teachers, 237 that were.
Something like that, yes,
And what does that represent? What percentage of the total teacher or employee?
We have approximately 260 teachers.
So that's not bad, 237 out of 260 something, right? That's pretty good, right?
Question 4, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes,
That's
Mr. Giggler.
important to know, right,
Yes.
to start off with, right? So I was a bit surprised that 44.3% said that children should be required to wear face coverings at all times inside the school buildings and the bus. That's a high percentage, whereas only 38 said they should basically adhere to the past or the original plan that talked about bus, and then once they're socially distanced in their seat number.
Right.
That's a very high percent. I didn't realize it would be that much among teachers. I think that's something we really need to consider and maybe talk about.
If you look at all the numbers, you got 38% that say only on the bus and until they're in the, should not be required of any student at any time. Well, there's another 5-6%. So you just put it above the 44. Then another one says should not be required of elementary students. So, you're looking at about a 50-50.
I think when you come down to it, we have to think of what's the happy compromise, because it is about 50-50 there, you're right. Even we as adults have a hard time reading them for a whole meeting. So you can imagine 6 hours a day at school. So I look at it as the more you can social distance, the less you have to wear the mask. That almost helps reinforce that. And then when we need to get together, we pull the mask up again. I just think realistically, in a school setting, that the best we're going to get is wearing it when we're less than 6 feet apart. And other than that, the children can sit comfortably at their desks. It's hard enough to learn algebra, but to be suffocating in a mask all day too is a whole nother thing. So let's make it as easy as we can on our teachers and staff, but it's at the board's pleasure. This is what we feel like instructionally is wearing it only when it's less than 6 feet and being able to sit comfortably at your desk or wherever when you're 6 feet apart.
Yeah, I guess I would disagree with you, Dr. Gonzalez. There's new research that talks about aerosolization of the virus. There's schools that don't have great circulation, AC circulation systems within your system. These are all important things that we need to consider. If it were all brand new schools with great circulation, that might be a bit different. But I don't think it's a lot to ask requiring all students while in class to wear masks when they're doing instruction.
I guess I disagree, and of course we know we disagree, but that's okay, is that our recommendations from the CDC, we're being more stringent than even what the CDC said. So we feel like that's a happy compromise, especially where we're requiring it all the way down to pre-K, that they have to wear masks when they're less than social distancing. When they're saying under 10, you don't have to. But again, for the safety of our staff who's going to be in the room with these 12 kids, we feel like to protect our staff, we need to make sure that the children are wearing a mask when they're less than 6 feet away from the teacher or from each other. Just trying to be realistic about what we're dealing with. I understand what you're saying about the ventilation of our buildings, but we'll be encouraging them to open windows and we'll keep the vents and everything going. Right, Mr. Williams is over there the best that we can, like we have in any normal school year, and to work with them. And we're going to work with our families to train them up on how to slowly start wearing their mask and to wear it out in public. And so when they come to school, it's just another place in the community that they have to wear it.
Other comments?
So just when it comes to the fact of A and B scheduling, when it comes to, I know you based it on instructional.
Right, that's why we made the decision.
Right, and I understand it, but a lot of comments that I heard from parents was that it helps them if they would be blocked in the first part or the back part, helps them with childcare. After the second days have that plan. That's one thing. Secondly, if we're going to go with face coverings and have them all for social distance, which I personally, I may disagree with Mr. Goodler, but if we're going to go that route, it seems like it would be better from a safety standpoint to go AA and BB to me. And that's where a lot of parents came back, and I talked to some health professionals, and it makes sense to them as well. you keep that first block of students together. I know you clean it every day, then you do the deep clean on Wednesday, and then put the other block of students together. It makes more sense to healthcare professionals. And I had people comment that as soon as the plan came out.
Right. Our plan has been vetted by Dr. Green, our local BDH person, and again, everyone, I even think in the medical community, have varying opinions. Just know that we will adapt to whatever the board wants to do. We will adapt to either schedule. It's just if you wanted to know why we decided what we did, it was for instructional purposes, because we strongly feel like 5 days is a long time, but we will do, and we can adapt to whatever the board would like us to do.
And I understand what you're saying with that.
Right.
I get it.
The March 13th to now has been a long time too, with nothing instructional.
Right.
So I have another Chromebook question. Okay, so how many total do we need? Like, total Chromebooks do you need to get it rolled?
The 725 would get us to that 1-to-1 ratio. And then we need to order, we were looking at another 100 to have that inventory for when eventually something breaks with one of the take-home devices.
So how many do we have to start with?
We currently, what we have now,
Yes.
what do we have right now?
I would estimate somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000.
That's a big variance.
It is.
Yeah.
Probably closer toward the 1,500 range.
Well, you figure pre-K through first grade have the iPads, and second grade up through second. But eventually, we were looking at getting Chromebooks for second grade because they're not coming 4 days a week like the other kids because we don't have enough space. We need to do 6 feet apart. So that's, again, a reason why it's through first grade and not second grade. So after we get the 100 extra in inventory, we need to turn right around and get the others to help the second graders out. Because the iPads won't go home, but the Chromebooks would. Or at least we weren't planning yet the iPads to go home.
So the ones we approved back on March 30th, April 23rd, and May 11th, they were ordered immediately following that meeting,
Yes.
Yes.
like the next day? Or
As soon as I received the purchase order, which was within a day or two.
What are those lead times, Blake? How long are those lead times?
As of right now, if I was to place an order today, it would be January 7th before we got one.
January 7th. And I'm assuming that probably held strong all the way through.
Yes.
Cal lead time.
If the student signed up to do virtual,
Full remote.
full day,
Yeah, we're not calling it virtual because we don't have the technology. We call it remote. Because they're going to learn at their house.
do they have to have a Chromebook? Do they have a computer at home that they can work on?
That's our problem. No, we took that inventory and we know that was it a half or a third, Eric? Was it that do not have access?
Well, to the device that you would need was right about half, 50%.
Right. So again,
So
that.
we consider, do you have your own device?
Right.
You know, when we did the survey, we had people that responded that say, yeah, we have one Chromebook, but we have, 4 children in the house. That's not feasible. So, when, the number that Dr. Gonzalez just gave, the percentage is 50% had either a laptop or a Chromebook or a desktop computer that would be capable of their own device to work on school.
So that's where when people are asking, why do we close down, like do it remotely or virtually, whatever they're referring to it as, for the first 9 weeks, this is our problem. We would have to be delivering the lessons via handouts, worksheets, copy papers, having parents drive up to get the materials, turning in about once a week, we trade out for the families that don't have all the access as we're growing the access. And it's not just us. I don't want people to think Page isn't on top of it. It's a lot of rural communities are fighting the same battle. I don't want them to think it's just Page. We're not the Fairfaxes, Prince Williams, Chesterfields of the world. We have internet issues here, and the county is working with us to get that going, but that's going to take time. And so in the meantime, until we get enough devices for everybody where kids can download it and sync it. So those kids who would, families who would select full remote and never show up and do full remote, let's say the first semester, they would still need to drive up to the school to sync, to download the materials if everyone had a laptop. So either way, it's going to require some partnering with our families still because not all homes have the internet. But again, we would train our families up. That's why we're anxious to start school, just so we can train everybody, get everyone used to how everything's going to work. But we can also train them and do it remotely the whole time if that's what the board's pleasure is. You know, again, we will adapt. That's why we don't have all the answers right now, because we're waiting to see what the board decides, so we know what direction to go and to finish those steps in planning.
Other questions? Other comments?
No matter what goes, you're not gonna get everything.
No,
And I'm thinking, you know, if I had to choose, I'd go A, B, B. That's just me. And I understand the 5 days in between, but I'm thinking, for those who are doing it at home, you don't know how long they're gonna go in between with, you know.
well, no, they can't go more than those days either, because for attendance purposes, they have to be interacting with it weekly, and they'll have to do the weekly, again, if it's weekly or bi-weekly that we're doing drive-bys at the school. And again, I'm just saying this off the top of my head, we gotta figure it out, how we're gonna exchange packets and get materials back and forth, but people need to understand, that's where remote learning in Page County is gonna look like until the technology gets in place. And it's gonna be a slow go all year, because even when it gets here in, fall, November, December, what if there's another back order? Like, I mean, this is gonna be slow growing, and, we will try to work to get those who have absolutely no access to a device, try to get them the devices first, and then slowly replace those who are able to use one at home. But again, trying to be fair to everybody, it's not perfect, but we're trying our best to serve and meet all the needs.
Question. Okay, I bet if you survey parents again, you might get a different answer about this. You might not. I know that when I personally got that survey asking if I have a device for my son, well, sure, I'm going to say I need one from the school division to use so that you're not going to mess mine up.
Well, and I think as a school division, we have that burden to provide all our families with one. I don't think they should have to use one, so I appreciate that answer, because you know what? You shouldn't have to use your own, nor should our
Unless you
teachers.
really need their, like.
Because I'm with you, I don't want to share mine with my kids when they were in school, you know, we're all like that. And, but I say the same thing for teachers and students. I think it behooves us as an organization to provide all the tools necessary. It's just going to be, as you see, we ordered immediately and we're still waiting.
So
So
maybe people will say, hey, we have something to make do till then, give mine to Sally.
that is what we would be asking. Those who have, could we, in the meantime, give to those who don't have to start off? Because you got to start somewhere in the distribution. We would like to think people would be stand up and help us in that, and let's all be a community working together.
I did get asked about or told in Rileyville, is it true that once you get to Springfield, further north you go, there's no internet service at all? Is that true?
Mr. Samples, is that true? You were at that meeting, you and Mr. Benson with the county.
Rileyville is one of the most troubled areas in terms of both broadband access and cellular access. Actually, I had a meeting with Verizon this morning, and they showed us the coverage map, and the closest tower to Rileyville is actually downtown here in Luray. So that's how far away they are.
But I had one grandparent reach out and say, you know, we can't even get internet out here past Springfield, and I didn't know that, so that's another.
Well, one thing we were looking at, I'll let Mr. Sample speak to it, but we were looking at Khajiits and some other things to put around the division, but it was a matter of where do we put it, because in some localities like Stanley, any place you find, it's really closer just to go to the elementary school. So Mr. Sample, do you want to talk about what some of those future plans look like?
So what we planned to do was put the outdoor Wi-Fi access points at the schools to expand that coverage to the parking lot, so that if one of the students did decide to drive up to the parking lot, they could, you know, stay in their cars, sync up their assignments, download what they need to without having to come into the schools. One of the other options that we're looking at is those Khajiit devices. We actually just this morning obtained our first one to be able to go around and start demoing it on the T-Mobile network, so we can see what that coverage looks like. And we have Mrs. Shank was actually working with our GIS teacher this morning to overlay the survey data that we had with the addresses. So now we can see, by overlaying the Verizon data, where our trouble spots are, so they can focus on seeing, you know, if those areas are the most trouble ones, which it gives us a good starting point, essentially. And then we can see where we need to distribute those things once we get them.
Sam, is there issues with you having 100 folks come up to Stanley Elementary and try to download it all at one time? What's that gonna?
We do have bandwidth limiting, so one device is only going to be able to pull so much. We do have a pretty good internet at the schools. We haven't installed these new outdoor access points yet, so we haven't been able to test them. But from the rating, 400 to 500 foot range and a fairly decent 10 to 20 meg per second download speed. So we should be able to accommodate 50, 60 devices at a time, I would think, or more.
And does that include Grove Hill Elementary? Is that a place that has?
No, we did not plan to put anything at Grove Hill currently.
I thought maybe it was already there, possibly.
Well, we do have Wi-Fi still in that building from where we went back to it a few years ago,
Okay.
but we didn't plan to put one of the outdoor spots there. That can be changed if we need to.
Yeah, I don't know if that helps the population. But I thought maybe it might be an option. Others?
I'll comment. I think what Jackie and Dr. Painter were talking about, I think they were alluding to the fact that some of us on the board are frustrated with PCPS leadership and the lack of preparation to get one-to-one devices. And given what we were experiencing back in March, we feel like you guys perhaps didn't order the devices soon enough, or there was a delay with approving. This should have been anticipated better. We'd be in better shape right now. We'd be closer to one-to-one. I'll say it.
Okay, I respectfully disagree because we also had money issues and so we were having to use it. And so we spent out our BPSA monies and then we turned to textbook monies the whole time trying to plan forward, not knowing. And also, again, the money issues. We could anticipate everything we'd be into now. I don't think that's a fair comment considering none of us have navigated a pandemic before. I feel like my team has done an excellent job in getting us where we're at. I feel like Page County could have maybe moved ahead earlier in the years with the one-to-one, but we just weren't there yet. We thought what we had in place was going to work, and now we realize it doesn't. But please understand, Mr. Grubler, well, it's not a perfect world. We're in the same boat with a lot of rural school divisions who have the same internet issues. And now the county's working with us as well, trying to get the broadband out. We've been partnering with Amy Muller and Liz Lewis and meeting with them, and we even provided the addresses to help with the geo mapping to figure out where we had access and where we didn't. I mean, we are partnering. If anything, the pandemic has moved that ahead faster because they've been trying to fight that battle, and now everyone's all hands on deck. So again, it's not a perfect world, but I think to lay blame at us on this is rather unfair considering everything we've been managing and dealing with the tools and resources we had at the time.
I'd like to get back to this plan and approval or not approval of this plan, and we can discuss other things at other times. But right now, we have a motion on the floor and a second to approve the plan presented to us. Is there further discussion on the plan?
When we say the plan, are we talking A, B, A, B, A, B, B? I mean, are we getting that technical or are we just saying the plan and then?
I would ask for guidance on if there's something you want to change, that you say the plan amended as with whatever the things you all would like to have amended. If we could we iron out that to see what it is you all want to change, and then we could vote on the proposed changes to the proposed plan.
And that's the direction that we have to go. There has to be a plan in place, and then if there are changes, if it's A, B, B, A, B, A, B, then we can.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment, a motion to this amendment, that we change the block scheduling to Monday, Tuesday, AA, and Thursday, Friday, BB.
Second. We need to vote on the first and then make it.
Yeah, we haven't said we're gonna go with any of this. So I don't know that we can change it. Exactly. That's why I said, we have to approve the plan, and then we can make amendments to the plan, is my understanding.
So repeat yourself in 30 seconds.
All right, go ahead and do it.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood.
Yes.
Motion
Is there a motion
Yes, there's a
to
motion.
amend the plan that has been, passed?
I make a motion that we amend the plan that has just been passed to change the scheduling for Monday, Tuesday, AA, and Thursday, Friday, BB.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood.
Yes.
Motion passed.
The next item on the agenda,
Mr. Greenlee, I'm sorry. May I get clarity from the board on the screenings and the temperature checks? Right now, the plan currently says just temperature check elementary and health screenings for secondary. And then we were proposing that we are ready to do it all at all levels. I just want to know if the board would like to amend the plan to include that change.
thank you for that clarification.
Mr. Chairman, I propose an amendment to include temperature screenings at all age levels. As described.
And screening.
Temperature screening and
Screening
paper screening
and paper screening at all age.
at all levels.
Yeah.
There's a motion, Mr. Gubler,
I'll second.
and it's been seconded. Is there further discussion? Vote?
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood.
Yes.
Motion
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other gray area?
No, but we can always come back to it if there's gray areas.
All right.
Thank you, board.
The next item is action on matters discussed in closed session.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the actions on the matters discussed in closed session to include the appointments, resignations, retirements, and transfers.
Second.
There's a motion and a second.
Vote.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thank you. At this time, we have citizen comment period, and the way the citizen comment period was derived is people had the opportunity to put comments on the site until 5 o'clock today. Those comments were pulled down. Those that had the name of the person and their physical address were listed, and at this time, we're going to read them. Questions were diverted to the website under the COVID-19, under frequently asked questions, and the answers to those questions were posted there. If you have further questions, that's where they'll be. At this time, Dr. Painter is going to do the honor of reading those comments for us.
Okay, Beth Hildebrand at 526 Shipwreck Road, Shenandoah said, I would like to see what virtual learning will look like for a high school student. For example, computer versus worksheet ratio. Are there videos of teachers teaching the subjects or modules to follow? I feel like I need more information on this before I can commit my child to a specific learning environment. LaWanda Fields, rumor is going around that 90% of parents and teachers are requesting school by computer. That's fine for people who don't have children with ADHD. I'm sorry, but the teachers have had a good break and it's time for school. Let middle and high school kids do the work by computer at home and use the other schools for the social distance if everyone is scared the elementary kids are going to spread something. I need my child in school. That is the only way he can learn. Roy Burns, 143 Baumgartner's Ford Road, Rowland Hill. I do not understand why you would risk the health of all students, teachers, and faculty The virus is present in our community and it will be in our schools. You're risking people's well-being and their lives. This is not a game. Why not be better safe than sorry? Most neighboring counties and states are doing remote only to start the school year. Why are you even considering having kids share buses, hallways, doorways, classrooms, etc.? You cannot have a plan for everything. You cannot ensure the safety of your employees and students, and you're okay with that? It's negligence at the highest level. When someone gets it and when someone dies, you'll be liable and you will get sued. Having in-person school to start the year will certainly increase the risk and exposure level. Would you go hang out at the hospital for 8 hours a day and walk the hallways? You can't even go into a hospital or a doctor's office for visits, but you're going to have dozens/hundreds of people be in schools. You think because Page County is a more rural area that it makes it completely safe? You're responsible for all outcomes, so act like it and do the responsible and safe thing. Virtual only school to start the school year. Elizabeth Comer, PO Box 641, Luray. There's no way a parent can take a child to school parking lot to use the Wi-Fi. First of all, the parent will most likely be at work. Also, the weather would cause the car to have to be running due to heat or air conditioning. A lot of cars would overheat if they stayed running that long and would be a lot of fumes. Not sure what the answer would be to provide internet, but definitely not the school's Wi-Fi. Erica K, 413 Taylor Grubbs Avenue, Stanley. Kids need a classroom setting. Not all students are going to do well with only 2 days of in-person classes. Some parents are okay with virtual learning, but more options need to be offered to these families who have both parents working and whose children need the one-on-one and face-to-face settings. Charity Good, 1750 Cross Mountain Road, Luray. Based on current data, I will not feel comfortable sending my son to school even 1 day per week. My ask is that a plan is created which follows flexibility for parents and guardians to make the decision whether children will attend in-person sessions or full virtual learning for the first semester and then reassess the pandemic January 2021. Kathy Briggs, 210 Berwick Drive, Rockingham, which she's one of our music teachers. While keeping students and teachers confined to their classroom to keep their chances of exposure to a minimum, why are we asking encore teachers such as PE, music, and art to visit every child in the school in a week? At Luray Elementary, that is 500 students and adults they're being exposed to. I think we need to rethink this. Kelly Zitzer, 7 Johnson Drive, Luray. Thank you so much for hearing my concerns. I have 2 students at Luray High School. I have 4 questions and considerations for the school board. 1, please reconsider the recommendation to offer attendance Monday, Thursday, or Tuesday, Friday, with Wednesday as a cleaning day. Those students attending Tuesday, Friday never have a clean building. I understand for the littlest students, this provides reinforcement on a more regular basis, but I fear for my students and families' safety with this arrangement. You're welcome. Number 2, please reconsider the recommendation that masks need not to be worn during class. In an enclosed environment with potentially asymptomatic students, I worry about the spread to other students and our teachers. 3, please expound in detail about the logistics of the online option. My senior needs to know how this will work so he may make the best decision for his education this year. 4, please hear the concerns and ideas of our teachers. They are most often citizens, voters, and parents. They'll be doing the hard work this year and deserve to have their voice at school board meetings. Thank you so much for hearing my concerns. I appreciate all the effort and consideration made by your staff in making the best out of a very difficult situation. And finally, Tracy Schuler, 8230 US Highway 340, Shenandoah. Given that scientists and the CDC now have determined that COVID is spread through aerosol transmission, how will allowing students to put their masks down, even with social distancing, impact transmission to people who are at high risk? It seems to relate to know the impact of air conditioning and heating on the transmission of the virus. Should masks be worn at all times as they have been recommended for people in the public, even given social distancing? Also, since teachers will be moving from class to class, would they be released from liability from incidents that occur when classroom supervision is not available? Although supervision may be provided in hallways, certainly some students will lack adequate supervision throughout the course of the day.
We thank you for these comments. These comments are sent to the staff at the school board office, and hopefully comments and questions, feedback will come in the form of post on the again, Facebook page, school web page, and any questions that were submitted through this particular format were sent on to the school board staff responsible for updating those questions frequently asked. So if you use this format and then your question was sent on and answers will be or have been addressed on the website. At this time, I'll close the citizen comment period and open board members' discussion time. Any items?
So just a couple questions. As we move forward with the plan, I listened to some of the comments there. I thought they were good. As far as a plan, as far as when we can start having to shut down, I guess, one of those things, if we get cases, once we start up, and we need to, there's places where we might say, we've got 30 students in a school, we have to shut the school down. Is that going to come from the state government, the governor?
Well, it's going to come from our local health department, who will also be communicating with the state health department. And it's through those conversations that those determinations will be made. Unfortunately, we don't have diehard metrics, so we don't have like a count of 10 or 15 or 20. We just don't have that yet. They promise us we'll have some metrics, but there's still not enough metrics because it is really school by school, case by case. So it is going to involve conversations. And upon those conversations, we will announce. And some of our schools or classes might have to be quarantined or closed depending on how it proceeds forward.
Because right now, the safety plan is that, social distancing or masks.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we would get, say, a couple of the first week, which we're going to, at some point, say, everybody's got to wear a mask all the time now. And make those kind of adjustments.
We would, and that's what people have to understand. We're gonna have to be fluid with this. If it comes to the point where we have to change up to keep people safe, then that's what we're gonna have to do. But again, that'll be an informed decision. It won't be us just randomly making that decision. That'll be after conversations with medical experts, not just ourselves.
Can you do me a favor?
But,
Every meeting we have, can you give me an update on that specific?
where we're at with cases.
Or, cases and what the plan is that currently at that time of how that's going to run. Cases going to change, the mask all the time, or we're going to have to shut down at certain times. I know it's not decided. I just want to have an update every meeting where that is.
We can, to the best that we can with confidentiality.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we can get that from operations over here, Mr. Moran. We can keep you updated to the best that we can with confidentiality.
But I want to know if you're hearing more about a plan in those.
We can definitely do that because we do have weekly calls still with our state superintendent, and we have other updates. And Mr. Van Wyk is always on calls with the health department each week and updates us. So we can certainly make that part of our report out to you guys. We can share out what we're hearing.
That would be great.
Okay.
Well, I know that's a big concern. I've heard it several times there. I think Mr. Buford.
Well, we will do that then and make that an informational item. Ms. Green Wallace, if you want to help us remember to add that for each meeting, and then Mr. Moran, if you and your team with Mr. Van Wyk can be prepared, and we will share that out to the extent that we know it at the time.
Thank you.
I'd like to clarify one item with what Mr. Googler addressed earlier. On May the 11th, when we approved that purchase order to buy the 425 Dell computers,
Mm-hmm.
nobody told me this, but I was just under the impression that and that would have been on a Monday night,
Mm-hmm.
that sometime in that week, that order went out. Now, I could have missed something, but as of last meeting, the first meeting in July, to my knowledge, that was the first time I had ever heard that there was a backlog and we weren't getting these things until November. And I guess where my concern is, I would have liked to have known right after that purchase order was put in, and if they were told, I would have liked to have known that, hey, we're on hold for these computers. But I don't know, maybe it came out before in June or whatever. I don't recall us being told that they were on a back order.
Well, to support my team, I did not know either until Mr. Samples told me, because he finds out things, but he might not have known either until he was checking up on the order. Mr. Samples, would you like to explain?
So the order was placed recently after you approved it. The backlog was not made aware to me until several weeks later. And that was when the rush of orders came in, and they let us know that, hey, there is a backlog, and that's when they informed me of the extended timeline to receive them.
Again, not knowing, I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know. I didn't know what was it late getting in or what was the deal. So you just explained it. So I appreciate that. And the second thing with Google, I got on my computer Friday, tried to get into my email. I didn't go onto the old site. That's my problem. And it comes up, Google's been disconnected, so forth and so on. So I emailed Mr. Staples, yes, I'm sorry. And he emailed back and told me that Google had been disconnected and we were going to, we were definitely using.
Not Google, Google,
Not Google, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
not, just the old website.
Right, the old
Yeah.
website was done away with.
Yeah.
And I get that, I
Yeah.
understand, but I guess I would have liked to have had a head up because I was panicking, not knowing what had happened, couldn't get in. And I have since gotten in on the news site and I have familiarized myself, and that's my problem.
Well, we switched over in November, and everybody knew that, and I announced it to the school board back in November that we had rolled it out.
But you could still get into the old one.
Right, we did not realize.
I didn't know what.
Right, and until you told us that, we knew that there was a redirect page, but until you told us, so thank you for giving us the heads up, we didn't realize that all the other pages were still accessible, so that's what we took down. And that was, until you told us that, we didn't realize that piece, but yeah.
Well, again, it's just kind of a breakdown of communication, but it's all taken care of. I'm okay. Like I said, I just wasn't aware, and I was worried I'm not going to be able to get in behind them, so.
Yeah.
Other comments?
All right, I'm gonna say something positive, because
Thank you.
there's two kids on here that need a shout out.
Yes.
So we got an email today from the Virginia School Board Association, the winners for the 2020 Valley Region Student Art Contest. And they chose 3 winners in elementary, middle, and high schools. And first place from Stanley Elementary was Chloe Price, so good job, Chloe. And then, let's see, look here. Second place high school winner, Amber Clark from Luray High School, so good job, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. And congratulations to those students. Mr. Gubler.
Okay, we're banging the drum some more. Given the issues with aerosolization of infectious particles and air circulation in some of our older buildings, I would recommend to PCPS leaders and teachers to strongly recommend that students wear face coverings at all times in the classroom. Strongly recommend. We're not requiring it. It was a strong recommendation.
Thank you. Any other comments? The only thing I would like to say is, and we've had some difficult decisions to make over the past few weeks, and probably this evening was the most difficult decision as a professional educator for many, many years that I've had to make. And I don't 100% support the decision that I made this evening, but I make the decision based on what I feel deep down is best for the students in Page County and for the staff in Page County. And I don't really agree that school boards ought to have been the ones making these decisions. I do agree with local authority and local rule, but I think there should have been a whole lot more guidance from the state. I think there should have been a whole lot more guidance from the health workers and support. I think the guidelines that we got from the state, and even more so from the Center for Disease Control, were not that clear, not that good. We were forced as a group of not healthcare professionals to make a decision that's really a healthcare decision. We did the best that we could with the information and the facilities that we have. It's a rough road we're going to be following. I've looked at a whole lot of data over the past 2 weeks from Denmark, Taiwan, North or South Korea, you know, all kinds of things as to the safety of bringing students back to school. And it was a hard decision, but I hope we made the one that's the best for students. And I think we're going to have a lot more questions come up, and hopefully we'll have the wisdom to make decisions that are right for the people. I just ask that you keep this board in your thoughts and your prayers, because we need all the support we can get. And thank you. At this time, meeting adjourned.